How's everybody doing? I'm going to take a very simple, very simple approach to understanding how rhythm works. We have rhythm in our life every moment of the day. Every moment, every minute, every second you have rhythm. I'm going to first compare it to the flow of a river. Music is a lot like a riverbed. Now, let's look at this top one here, okay? And I'm always just going to look at the top one through it here, okay? You can see the top here. Now, as we flow along the river, this is on, I don't know what page it's on, but here we go. If I can get just the image alone. Here we go, just the image alone is all I need. As we flow along the riverbed, we're going to have a start and a finish. We're going to, hey, they're going to be flowing from the ocean or from somewhere. It's going to go from somewhere to somewhere. It might flow to the sea. It might flow somewhere else. But it's flowing in a direction. How fast is that river flowing? Now here we see it's got, here it's got some rocks here, right? Now, let's look at two parts about a river that we know to be true. It's going to have a force behind it. How hard is the water pushing? And it's going to be having a speed to it. How fast is the river flowing? There's two major parts about a river. How hard is it pushing and how fast is it going? That's the same thing in electronics. We're going to have voltage, how hard is it pushing, and current, how fast is it going? You notice the word current also works with electronics as it does with the riverbed. How fast is it moving? Well, in music, we're going to have, instead of the word current, we're going to have tempo. How fast is the song going? Now, how hard you drive that song, that's a different story. But how fast is it going? That's a tempo. Now, I want you to look at the river. A river also has different turns and twists. Okay, even if this picture here, if I go to a different picture, okay, let's take us in here. Let's take this picture here. If I find it here, it's right here. Open a new image. Let's look at this picture here. We can see it twists and turn and goes back and forth, right? You can see it here. Go left, goes right, goes down some waterfalls a little bit here, goes down another one. Okay, now let's take this one in a very good example. A lot of times when you're playing a song, it's not a straight shot if you were to be playing one chord the whole thing through. But it's going to take some turns. It's going to go left turn, it's going to go right turn, just like this picture here. So if we say, okay, we got to start, and now we're going to use a number system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're going to use that number. That way, and you can fill in a key to that number. So if we're going to say, let's talk about the key of A, well, A would be 1, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so you start with A. But now there's sharps and flats. But let's look at the 7 letters first. The 7 letters first. So if we're working in, let's just work with the key of G. It's a lot easier and less confusing. In the key of G, we're going to have G as my main chord or root chord. That's the key. That's the particular river we're going to go down. In that key, we're going to have 3 major chords. The key is usually the root chord. So if I say I'm going to play in the key of G, then G is my root chord. Then we're going to have 2 other chords that's going to generally back that one up. We can have more, but we're going to generally have 2. That's the 4 and 5. So G, C, and D. So let's look at this. As we look at this river, it's not going straight. It's going a little bit, well, it's going to which way you look at it, to my left here, then to the right, to the left, okay? So let's say if you go to the left, it's 4. If you go to the right, it's 5. Then back center again. So however turns you want to make, you're still going to flow this river. If you make a 1, 4, 5, then you're going left, right, back to 1. Okay? So it's all in the direction of which way you're going with your music. If you're playing the 1 chord or the G, and you want to go to the 4th chord C, okay, now do you go back to 1 or do you go to 5? So it's all in basically how your river is flowing. Okay, that's all it is. So when you look at the river here, you say, oh, I'm going straight down. I can see it's from here to here, it's a straight shot. So let's take that as our key. That straight shot is my G, okay, or whatever your one chord is, your root chord. And as I'm turning, I'm going 4, then go over here to 5, come back to 1, okay, then 4, then 5, okay. So you can, it's all a river, it's all music is understanding how fast the music is going, the tempo or current, and do you go left or do you go right? So imagine yourself on a kayak going down this little stream, going down this little creek bed here, and you're hitting the waterfalls a bit, okay? Now it's a lot easier if you just if you're in your kayak or your raft or whatever it is, and just sit and let the water do your work. Well, that's the same thing that you do in music. You want to let the flow of the music do most of the work. All you're going to do is ride along with it. Now, how do you ride along with music? One, your drums set the beat, set the tempo, set how fast this river's going. That's done by your drums. How fast are they hitting that boom? Okay? Now, how do we measure things? How do we measure it? Well, in life, we got several ways of measuring things. Let's look at the speed on your car, speedometer in your car, right? It tells us how fast we're driving, don't it? Okay? Whether we're driving under the speed limit or over the speed limit, it measures how fast you're going. Now, how we measure this in the United States and in other countries is a little different, but the MPH is miles per hour. So we got 3 letters to indicate speed. Now, in some countries, it might be kilometers per hour. Well, in music, we have BPM, beats per minute. It's on the same principle on how fast your car's going. Let's just say you want to play something at 60 beats per minute. That's 1 beat per second. Right? Simple math. 60 seconds in a minute. If you're doing 60 beats per minute, then you're doing 1 beat per second. So let's look at also on the speedometer. If we're driving 60 miles an hour, how many miles would we go in 1 minute? 1. We'd go a mile a minute. If we go 60 miles an hour, there's 60 minutes to an hour, so we'd go 1 mile a minute. You see how we broke it down? Same way in music. If we're playing 60 BPM, beats per minute, how many beats are we doing per second? 1. Now, let's look at this. If we're doing 60 beats per minute or 1 beat per second, what is a beat? Well, a beat is normally determined by a quarter note. So it's how fast you tap your foot. So if you could tap your foot every second, tick, tock, every time it says tick, you pack in it, tick, tock, tick, tick, okay? Every time it goes tick, tock, tick, 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 and you're patting your foot, then you're doing 1 beat per second. And this is a very good way of analyzing your BPM. How many times can you tap your foot to a song per minute? Now, if you're patting your foot really fast, then you're going, and you're going faster than 1 beat per second, so you can count 1001, 1002, 1003. Now, here's where you get into faster tempos. What if we drive 120 miles per hour? Now, we're doubling the speed. We're going, instead of going a mile a minute, we're going 2 miles per minute. We're going twice the speed. 120 miles per hour is 2 times faster, okay? 60 minutes per hour, 120. So we're going to go 2 times faster than we did before, 2 miles a minute. Or we can look at it in music as beats per measure. If I'm playing 120 beats per minute, then I'm playing how many beats per second? 2. 2 beats per second. So by the time you clap your foot, it's already 1 beat. 2 beats per second. So you tap your foot a lot faster. So beats per measure is very, very important. Beats per minute. Beats per minute is very, very important in music. How fast are you going to go with the song? Now, let's look at what is the biggest rhythm we have in our life. Every one of us is our heartbeat. We measure our heartbeat by pulse. What's your pulse rate? How many beats per minute? So when they take the pulse, they could tell you 60, 70, whatever. So how many times are they hearing that boom, boom, boom? And that's no different than in music. So rhythm is all around us. Rhythm is more important in any music than any lead guitar or a piano or anything. If you don't keep your rhythm, no matter how good of a guitar player you are, you're not going to play in with a band. So rhythm is very, very, very important to keep. Now, how do we keep our rhythm? One, you play along with a very seasoned drummer who knows how to count. That's all it is knowing how to count. Now, if you look on this chart here, we'll see it spikes. Okay? We can see it spikes right up here. And it goes down. Right? Goes up, then it goes down. Then it goes up, disable again, it comes again. Okay? Now, if I was to say this, now this also applies into electronics as well. When we check the voltage on something, when we check the current on something, we'll also see something similar to this. We use back in our time, back when I was in the military, we used what we call an oscilloscope to measure the wave files, to measure how fast that current's flowing. In music, we call it a wave file. You can have a wave file that looks similar to this. It's got your ups and downs. The FM radio, now let's look at the old radio stations, AM and FM. What's the major difference between the two broadcasts? FM is a frequency modulation, and AM is an amplitude modulation. The frequency modulation modulates by going wider, quicker, like this. So, okay, the amplitude modulation modulates on top and bottom. It modulates on the amplitudes. But they still have a similar wave file like this. The only difference is how that's broadcasted. Everything in life has a rhythm. How fast you're going. If we measure something, we take a tape measure out or a ruler. We measure our heartbeat. We measure how fast we're going in a car. Everything. When they measure your eyes to see how near side or far side. Now, how do we measure something? We got to have a common reference point in order to measure how far you are away from that point. Well, when we measure music, we measure, okay, we're going to take a watch, a stopwatch. We got to measure it in time because music takes time to listen to a song. How many beats? Now, beats is generally, if you're going to go 4/4 timing, a beat is a quarter note and it's 4 beats per measure. Now, what that means is I'm going to make my first beat the loudest so you can hear it when you count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the time it takes from the 1 to the 1 is a measure. When you go 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 beats. So when you're looking at 4/4 timing, there's 4 beats per measure. Quarter note gets a beat. So you can say, I'm going to write 4 quarter notes in. That's a measure. Or if you can divide it down, I want to write 2 eighth notes. That's a quarter note. That's 1 beat. So everything involves math. Math is the maintaining concept of all music is related to math. How fast do you go? Now, we've got the timing, 4/4 timing. Now let's go more into that. As we go to the riverbed again, and we see the different pictures of rivers, we could say, well, how do I know by looking at it if it's 4/4, 3/4, 6/8, 2/4? There's so many different timings out there. How do we know by looking at it which one it is? When you look at a measure on sheet music, it gives you a visual representation of what you're playing in music. So we got to count how many quarter notes there are between one staff line and the other. Okay? Like I said, there's 4 quarter notes take a beat. If it's 4/4 timing, quarter note gets 1 beat and it's 4 beats per measure. What about 6/8 timing? What about the most common another common one is 3/4 timing. Now, if we look at how do we measure how fast we're going down the riverbed, and on music, they call it knots, nautical knots. How many knots are you traveling? On land, it's miles per hour, kilometers per hour. How do we determine how fast music going? Well, again, we got to count that 1 beat is the loudest. That's our first one. What do we have between that first one and the second loudest? How many beats do we have before we go back to that 1 again? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, that's 3/4 timing. So you hear that 1, the loudest boom. Now, what they call in guitar a boom chick method or boom chick chick method, whatever you want to call it. It's boom chick method. I want to hit that first beat with the boom and follow my rest of them with the chick chick, or just kind of just strum. So it's boom chick chick, boom chick chick, boom chick chick, boom chick chick. So we measure music in beats per minute. How many beats do we have, and how fast we coming at? How fast are we coming in with that beat? So that tempo is driving that first beat. How fast is this coming? So when you're traveling down this river, let's think about, let's put some rocks in the way, or put some waterfalls, put something in the way. Now this is going to be what we call like a resistor. The resistor is what's going to hold the voltage. Okay, it's going to slow it down. It's going to give you what you need here. All right. So let's put some resistors in the way. Now the resistors are going to determine how many beats per minute we have. If we got let's say we got 4 resistors, and we're going to hit them. Let's say bam, 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 bam. Okay? So we're going to hit them 4 times before we hit that big hard one again. Well, that's 4 beats per minute. 4 beats per measure. We put 3 resistors there. Boom, 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 boom. 3/4 timing. So it's all in determines on how fast you want to get back to that first beat again. Now, 3/4 time is also called waltz time because it's a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, what about 2/4 timing? What's the difference between 2/4 timing and 4/4 timing? Well, they're both similar in nature. You've both still got 4 beats per measure, but the 2/4 timing is faster generally than the 4/4 timing. So let's say if you write something, it's 60 beats per minute in 2/4 timing. That'd be equivalent to saying 120 beats per minute at 4/4 timing. It's just how fast you're going. Now with 2/4 timing, it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. That one beat's coming on pretty fast because it just only go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Whereas 4/4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. When you see a conductor, you'll see him waving his hands up and down, left and right. He wants to make sure you know when that first beat's coming in. Now we determine when that first beat's coming in so we can breathe when we sing. We want to be able to count the measures between the time we finish a verse and the time we start a chorus, or vice versa. So understanding when to take a breath. We have an upbeat and a downbeat. The upbeat's generally the 8th, downbeat's the 1/4. So you really want to make sure that downbeat's a little harder, but make sure that's my downbeat. It's like breathing. Again, that's another rhythm. We want to breathe. So everything in life involves a rhythm, a pattern, a sequence of events. Now, what we got to do is determine how do we ride that pattern, how do we ride that river, how do we ride the song. The rhythm drives the song. What you do with your melody line or what you do with you adding walks is you're still riding along that river. I hope this helps.